Hey everyone, it's Marc with MainWP here, and today I've got Vasyl Martyniuk here with me, and he is the creator of the Advanced Access Manager, which is a WordPress plugin, and he's also just created an extension for MainWP that allows us to integrate some functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let Vaz talk a little bit about himself and tell us kind of what got you into this and how long have you been doing it? What's kind of your origin story?
All right. Well, thank you, Mark, for introduction. So originally from Ukraine, and I came to States back in 2011. Naturally got into the tech job because that's what I've been doing back in Ukraine. And my first job was in marketing agency. And WordPress was the main CMS that agency was using for their projects for the clients. And at that time, there was a lot of plugins, but not as many plugins as you can find today in a WordPress.org repository. And one of our clients was very picky. They didn't want to have too many plugins on their site, but there are some very specific needs, ability to define granular permissions to the admin area. At that time, there were two plugins that we could use to combine and fulfill the needs that the customer wanted. But I had a strong feeling that it's time to create something combined. So that's where AAM emerged. It was just an over weekend project that I did on myself, just submitted to the WordPress.org repository. And that's how my journey with WordPress started. Because AAM, or Advanced Access Manager, is a plugin that always was pulling me back to WordPress community. It was the reason why I started doing speaking. I wouldn't say a lot, but decent amount of speaking back in days on WordCamps. That's where I met a lot of people. And somehow the WordPress community was resonating with me. It's just nice people, all casual. Nobody's pretending. At least back in days, nobody was pretending.
Yeah, we won't go into that.
Yeah, we can talk. But yeah, if you ask like about me, I would consider myself as a developer, as a software engineer, and a hardcore software engineer. I did 4 years. I actually use assembler, which is the lowest programming language you can find to do coding. And then I jumped between different companies for a good 20 years, multiple different industries. So I got a lot of experience working with in different roles. And one way or another, I was bringing all that experience into the plugin that I've been building, Advanced Access Manager. So as of today, it is a combination of all the ins and outs that I've gained by working in so many different industries.
You jumped kind of from marketing, but you had developer and engineering experience prior to coming to the States. But you went from marketing and kind of evolved into creating this plugin. When you started doing this, were you aware of the WordPress community at the time, or were you just doing it because it functioned and did what you needed it to do, and then you kind of fell into the community?
When I worked in that agency, it was a V Design Studio back in Raleigh, North Carolina. The owner of the agency, he said like, hey, you need to go to WordCamp. There was a WordCamp in Raleigh. You need to go and see what is a WordPress is all about. Because I was just kind of like coding on WordPress, learning its core, reading all these books about how to build plugins, how to write code. But I never thought that there was a larger community. And that's where I went. It was in 2011, 2012. It was 2011 in Raleigh, and I went on the first WordCamp, and I saw how big it is, and the hundreds and hundreds of people. And I was like, wow, there is a community behind it. And that's kind of like, yeah, there's also potential. My gears start spinning like, oh, there is a potential to maybe, grow that plugin, maybe put more efforts. And yeah, and that's how it all started.
It's funny because I went the opposite direction of you. I started out as a developer and realized actually that I wasn't that great at it because there were people way better than me. And I ended up kind of in the marketing side of things. Developers speak enough to understand it, but don't ever put me in front of, a text editor and expect me to push out code. I actually do think ChatGPT does a better job than I do. So
It's getting there, yep.
yeah, it is there with me. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, I had the same experience where I was unaware of the actual community behind WordPress. And I think a lot of us who have been around for quite a while kind of agree that that's that's really the power behind that 43% that we hear about all the time, is that community. So AAM, how does it differ, would you say, from like a membership plugin? Is it more like a restrict content pro kind of thing, or is it a full, can it be used as a membership plugin? How would you describe it?
Again, it's another very good question, because for years I was also wondering, like, what's the AAM identity that differentiates it
Mhm.
for other solutions out there? And people asking the same questions, like, what is AAM? Is it a membership? It's a roles and capabilities. It's a security tool. Finally, I came to conclusion that Advanced Access Manager, first and foremost, is a collections of services to cover security concerns. If you think about security in general, it's such a broad topic. People say, oh, my site is secured, or my site is not secured because I have this particular plugin. But security starts from a server hardware to the person that actually using a website.
Mhm.
And everything in between is considered security. So Advanced Access Manager cover a very specific niche of the security, which is responsible for access controls. Essentially, what user can or cannot do on a site. When, how, and under which condition. That's what Advanced Access Manager is. So is it a membership plugin? Yes, because what is membership? It's a ability to manage members and what they can or cannot do, right? Is it a security, like comparable to WordFans or any other security plugin out there? Yes, because it protects your website from harmful activities. But in a nutshell, it's a tool, it's a plugin that allows you to manage access controls for your WordPress site. Have you heard of an OWASP top 10 list?
Isn't that it's a security, what's the word? Not protocols, but security standards, I suppose.
Yes, so it's a nonprofit organization that analyzes hundreds of thousands of security incidents. And then they distill this top 10 most common reasons for the security incidents. Every 4 years, they release that list. And then a lot of security organizations, they use that list to define their security strategies. Accordingly, they secure the projects. So broken access control is actually issue number 1 on that list. Apparently, over 90% of all the projects have some level of broken access control, which means incorrectly defined permissions. Or maybe there is a lot of ghost users that can be used, a ghost account that can be used to compromise.
That's surprisingly high.
It is.
Yeah.
Organizations typically think, hey, we need to protect our organization. So let's build the fence around our organization. And that's where the most focus is. But what happens when somebody gets inside the organization? Everything is an open door. Anybody can walk in any room, do whatever they want. I wouldn't say it's a fault of the owner organization. It's just they never think about it, because when people talk about security, they always scream brute force attack, firewalls that needs to be to protect that, black IP addresses that need to be eliminated, two-factor authentication. But nobody really talks about, okay, but if somebody is inside, what's then?
That's kind of like that old horror movie or whatever it was, where the call is coming from inside your house, or that kind of thing, where
Yeah.
people tend to not think in terms of that, because they feel like they've put all the security up, around. Dealing with what's within is always, I imagine, an ongoing concern, and like you said, very much overlooked, I suspect. How exactly does your plugin then address that? It still involves a certain amount of oversight, I imagine.
The way that Advanced Access Manager look at the WordPress site is it's a collection of resources that users can have access to or do not have access to. Think about resources as the admin menu. It's a resource. Admin toolbar, it's a resource. Post, pages, categories, terms, taxonomies, all this is just separate resources that are connected to each other one way or another. Because, for example, post can belong to category, right? So there is a relationship here. Some category can be subcategory for other category. Then we have this category that might belong to a specific post type. All these relationships, they are complex. WordPress itself is very simple, but when you start combining all these pieces together, it becomes very complex and complicated network of relationships. On the same side, users have roles. User can have multiple roles. User can belong to one side, can belong to other side in a multi-site network. So all that relationship, that's what Advanced Access Manager takes into consideration. And then for the administrator or the owner of the site, the question that they need to answer is like, how do I manage all these access controls, and how do I properly define access strategy to my website to protect all my resources in the right way? And AAM give the tools to fine-tune these access controls, access points. And AAM takes into consideration all these complexities when it's come to relationships between all these different resources. So it abstracts out all the complexity, gives just the ability to go and fast and efficiently define all these permissions.
So I'm looking at your website, which is at aamportal.com. What I find interesting is you've been around for 10 plus years. I'm looking at your panels here, and it says very fast. So engineered to handle extremely large websites. I assume that means that you're constantly streamlining your code in order to make that happen. How big of a task is that for you, or do you have it pretty well down?
At this moment, AAM is already highly optimized. It took years to fine-tune it, specifically when it's come to large websites. We have a client that have over 1 million pieces of content on their site.
Wow.
Over several million of users, and it became extremely challenging, just the way the WordPress core works when it's coming to content. It became extremely challenging to define these access controls at scale. Everything in WordPress continuously fluctuates. Post and instant become a different post type, or some pages might start belong to different categories. You know, it's so easy to change categories or tags for the content. Users can change their roles all the time, especially in the membership sites. You know, you have a subscriber and then they paid for next level, and boom, at no time they become a different role. So that always changes, and AAM has to instantly react to all these changes, right? It basically dynamically had to adjust all the permissions based on how everything changes in WordPress. So it was a pain in the butt to make sure that whatever functionality AAM has, it does not compromise the speed. It's been probably a journey of 5 years in order to really fine-tune, really work in depth with multiple organizations to troubleshoot, to debug it, and to experiment to find the right combination of functionality that does not really compromise the speed. So at this point, it's extremely fast. There is a WP Hive. It's a third-party company. We're not affiliated or associated with this organization at all, but what they do, they scan all WordPress plugins for the speed, for any errors. Based on what they show on their site, AAM is faster than 99% of other WordPress plugins in the official repository.
Oh, that's nice. You did the homework and did the work, so that's awesome. You brought up it was OWASP, right? Okay, you said that they release that list every 4 years. 4 years seems like a long time given all the stuff that goes on security-wise in the industry. It seems like we're constantly fighting battles with that. I'm kind of curious if you think that's a long time, or if the overall issues tend to be the same, they just kind of present themselves differently, or how that works.
Yeah, from what I've seen, the list remain mostly the same. It's just the order of items shifting. So for example, broken access control used to be, I think, like 4th or 5th position back in 2021, or even earlier than that. But now it's number 1. Who knows? They're about to release the new list this month or next month, and maybe some new things will pop up. I think the list can change drastically if there are new technology. For example, AI, rise of AI likely will introduce some new items on the list. Because it's already, we know that a lot of companies use AI to kind of like feed the data, and that data might contain the sensitive information. There's already, I've seen hacks that involves AI agents. So likely some new items gonna emerge on that list related to AI. Is it 4 years long? Well, probably yes and no, but I can see, first of all, it's not a non-profit organization.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so a lot of enthusiasts come in there and contribute. It's not like there is a whole organization that does it. If it was a for-profit organization, they probably were releasing every month or even every year, at least once a year.
4 years sounds long, but then I think in terms of election cycles, and it seems like we're voting for a new president every 2 days. So I guess 4 years may not be that long after all. But you don't want to present findings on a data set of, of minimal amount. So I can see why you go and extend a certain amount of time, but on the surface, it does sound long. So let's talk a little bit about you, of your own volition, decided you were going to make a MainWP extensibility or integration that allows for us to work with AAM. I really appreciated what you said here. In future versions, we plan to incorporate ideas and feedback from MainWP users, as this is our way of contributing to the community. I really like that you're focused on contributing to not just the WordPress community, but of course it spoke to me that you wanted to contribute and listen to the MainWP users, because as you know, we listen to our users probably more than I'd say most other plugin creators, especially ones that have been around. What was it that made you say, hey, I should build this extension and I should build it for MainWP, as opposed to coming up with some other company that you would do it for, or do it on your own?
First and foremost is my customers were reaching out directly to me saying, hey, is there any extensions for MainWP? Because we want to use AAM on all our sites that we manage through MainWP dashboard, but there are no extensions. There's nothing that could connect. So that sparked the interest, look into that direction. And it was a year ago when I started looking into the ability to integrate with MainWP. It's only recently that we finally had a time to pull the trigger and do that particular integration. So yeah, the first kicks or first impulses were coming from the clients. Then the next thing is, yeah, I noticed that MainWP is very similar in philosophy to Advanced Access Manager. Listen to your community, listen to your clients, and incorporate the feedback into the functionality. Because Advanced Access Manager, 99% of the functionality, it's ideas coming from the clients, from the customers. Honestly, and considering the fact how big WordPress community is, we didn't have to think about ideas. They were just floating, overfloating.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I remember AAM back in 2016 and 17. People were asking, what is AAM? I couldn't tell in one simple sentence, which means it was too big to describe. Then if something goes terribly wrong, because all these ideas, there were no cohesiveness, right?
Right.
But now it's kind of like it's already streamlined, as I can better articulate what it is. MainWP, super easy to integrate with. So the documentation is there. It was easy to follow. It took me probably 30 minutes to understand where should I start, what should I do, how this entire logistics, how the data flow between dashboard and the sites that connect to the dashboard. It's a big community. It is asks from our customers to have that integration. So hey, all boxes are checked. Let's move on.
You had some interaction with our team, but you actually did most of this, I think 99% of it, like without much input from the team. The documentation, obviously was very clear, which we do put a lot of focus on making sure that our documentation is clear. This is your first release of it, and what exactly does it do? And if you want to go into a little bit of what the plans you have for it down the road and all that, that would be great.
The first initial release is the only thing it does, it just showed the AAM security score. Yeah, I know it's another score, because main focus of Advanced Access Manager is on the access control The AAM score is showing you how many issues with broken access control you have on a site and where you should put your focus in order to either mitigate potential security concerns or improve your security posture in general. That's what AAM score is. It shows you how good or not so good your security posture based on what we see on your site. And that's the first initial version, and that's what it does. It syncs with all the subsites, and it pulls that security score and show you on your MainWP dashboard. And if a score is low, you can always jump to your site and see the full report that show you where we see there are concerns. So what that security score is, probably, I don't know, 6 months ago, we released this automated security scanner that basically checks your website for broken access controls or insufficient security design. For example, you might have too many administrators on your site, which is a huge security concern. You might trust all your administrators, but can you trust that any of those accounts will be compromised in the future? Probably not, right? We give a recommendation how to mitigate that type of concern. Another example could be, all right, you have a certain roles that are hidden, which means administrators are not even aware that there might be users with the hidden roles that can be even more elevated than administrator role. So we kind of like shed the light on all these internal things that happen inside your site that you might not be aware of. The list goes on and on. The list of items on the report will be continuously revised and new items will be added. But that's initial version of the extension for the MainWP. It syncs all these scores and show it in one place.
Well, I think that actually is very useful. Let's say that I have a site with, 1,000 users, WordPress users. It's kind of hard to go through those users and see what kind of access they all have. If you see something with a low score, then you go to the site and you see the report. Does it show simply like who has what kind of access so that it's very easy to track that user down? And I've seen some hack sites where these users get injected in there that you didn't even know existed. And when you have a site with, 2,000 users or whatever, it's hard to know that those people have any type of elevated access because they're one of 2,000 users. So I imagine that report shows you where these vulnerabilities are so that it's very easy to pop in there and fix it.
That's right. That's right. I've actually recorded a video showing how a simple editor on a WordPress site can gain administrator access effortlessly.
Okay.
It is on YouTube. It just shows how much you can lose as a website owner, as a business owner, if you're not really paying attention to permissions on your site. And most of the WordPress users don't even realize that even editor is extremely powerful role. So be very mindful who can be an editor. I've even submitted that issue to WordPress security team, which they reacted really fast to that. They discarded the issue. They said like, yeah.
But at least they reacted to it.
They at least reacted. That's
Right.
I can give a big credit. They reacted within
Yeah.
5 minutes. That was impressive.
That is impressive. Yeah.
That's what the report that Advanced Access Manager gives, is just shed a light and educates. For most, I think it's educates website owners where there are backdoors.
I can see where it'd be useful, having had the experience like 3 years ago where all of a sudden and we had 50,000 users. I mean, it was insane. And it wasn't with MainWP, it was with ServerPress. Our site did get hacked. Fortunately, we were able to fix it quickly. But yeah, I had to go in and track down this user that had somehow gotten elevated access. And it would have been a lot easier to have something like this where I just like click a button and boom, this is the guy, right, that you don't recognize. How does your pricing work? Is this extension something that costs money? Is it free? How does it work?
So everything what we just discussed, it's free. There will be never a charge for any of these security scans. You can go install AAM free version and run the scan yourself. It's actually automated. It runs once a day automatically and recalculates the score. So what you actually pay when it's coming to premium add-on, you're paying for the ability to define access controls at scale. Let's say a simple example would be how can I restrict access to all the pages, but allow only to few specific pages? So it's kind of like reversed access. You can define a default access control to the entire post type and then go explicitly override that access to specific pages. Or for example, you can make your entire website private. With a premium add-on, it's easy. You just create a one rule with a wildcard and it restricts all the URLs on your site. And then you could go explicitly allow only one of you. That's where the premium add-on come in handy. Defining access controls at scale.
I imagine caching never comes into it as an issue for you because user roles and things should not be cached anyway. But I'm just kind of curious if you've ever run into any issues with caching when it comes to that.
Yeah, that comes quite often when the rendered page is cached. It's still an issue from time to time when people say, hey, I protected this page, but it is still available on the front end. Well, yes, it will be available because it's cached. So it never hits PHP code. It's just spits out already cached page. So you need to go and purge it. It's very common because AAM is also restrict access to physical files. Let's say you have some PDF documents or some images or videos that you uploaded to WP uploads. And they're like, oh, I've restricted these PDFs, but I can still download them. Well, yeah, because you have your caching in the edge, you need to go and purge it. Right. So caching is an issue, but caching is also a trade-off. People have to understand. It's basically, you create a copy of your assets elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
That sometimes is an issue.
I think that caching is probably one of the most used and least understood things out there.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I think people, oh, caching makes your site faster. Okay, I'm going to click yes here. And the reality is educating yourself on it is probably not topmost on mind until, something like that happens. And then you have to go in and then people like to just purge the whole cache and start over again.
Caching itself is extremely simple concept.
Right.
What's the most complicated and always done wrong, mostly done wrong, is a caching invalidation. It's like when you need to purge a cache so it can be replenished itself. That's where a lot of times, 9 out of 10 times, it's done wrong.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, when it's coming to the feedback, like we always are welcoming a feedback from the community. Anything that you feel like needs to be added to the extension for MainWP, AAM, it's going to be added. I can promise that.
Fantastic. And then lastly, where do people find you?
If they want to find me as a person and talk to me as a person, I think you can just directly email me at vasyl@vasyltech.com. That's my email. If they want to talk about AAM itself, they can go to aamportal.com and use a contact form to submit whatever question they have there. We'll be back promptly. Yeah, I don't really big of a social guy, like a social network guy. Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn, not really big of a Facebook or any other social network.
Yeah, Facebook is a necessary evil for some of us, but I can't tell you how many times I've tried to disconnect from Facebook, but realize that it's impossible, unfortunately. So they got me where they want me. Well, fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Of course, if you ever have anything for us, let us know. And to everyone watching, yeah, please contact Vaz or go to our voice.mainwp.com page and you can add things there. And if anything is related to AAM, we'll be happy to pass it on to Vaz as well. So thank you very much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I know you're a couple hours ahead of me. So
Thank you, Marc. Thank you, Marc. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.